There are moments in life when we find ourselves standing before a door that has suddenly shut. We knock, we plead, we cry out, but it will not open. Our plans crumble, our dreams fade, and confusion fills the silence. We begin to ask, why, God? Why would you close this door when I was so sure it was meant for me? But my friend, when God closes one door, it is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of something far greater that your eyes have not yet seen. God is not cruel in his timing, nor careless in his decisions. Every door he closes has a divine purpose. Sometimes he shuts a door to protect us from harm that we cannot see. Sometimes he closes it because he knows we are settling for less than what he has prepared. You may think that job was perfect, that relationship was the answer, that plan was your destiny. But God sees the entire path ahead. He knows the dangers, the delays, the heartbreaks waiting beyond that door. What feels like rejection is often his redirection. If God allowed every door to remain open, we would never learn to trust his hand. We would lean on our understanding instead of his wisdom. So he closes one door to teach us to seek him, to humble ourselves, to listen for his whisper. He does not shut us out. He draws us in. He invites us to surrender what we thought we needed so he can give us what we truly need. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. Every door he faced seemed to slam shut in his face. But in those dark halls of disappointment, God was working. He was shaping Joseph's heart, building his strength, preparing him to become a ruler who would save nations. If Joseph had not walked through the closed doors, he would have never stood in the palace. Or remember Moses, who fled Egypt after killing a man. The door to his old life closed completely. But in the desert, God called him to something far greater, to lead his people to freedom. The door that closed on Moses' past opened the way to a destiny that would change history. So when you face a closed door, don't lose faith. Don't let bitterness take root. Don't stand there knocking on what God has already locked. Instead, lift your eyes and ask, Lord, what are you preparing me for? What new path are you opening? Because behind that closed door is a new beginning. Behind that disappointment is divine direction. Every delay is not denial. Every no from God is a setup for a better yes. You may not understand it now, but one day you'll look back and thank him for every door that didn't open, for every unanswered prayer that kept you from a mistake, for every heartbreak that led you closer to his will. When God closes one door, he doesn't abandon you in the hallway. He stands beside you, holding the key to another, one that leads to growth, to peace, to purpose. And when that door finally opens, you'll see that his timing was perfect all along. When a door closes in life, it is not a sign of failure or rejection, but a divine redirection meant to guide you toward something greater that God has prepared beyond your current understanding. God's closed doors are often acts of protection, shielding you from unseen dangers, missed opportunities, or emotional harm that would have hindered your purpose and growth. Disappointment and delay are tools in God's hands to strengthen your faith, deepen your trust, and teach you to depend not on your plans, but on his perfect wisdom and timing. Every closed door becomes a lesson in surrender, inviting you to release control, listen for God's voice, and align your desires with his will rather than forcing your own way forward. Examples from the lives of Joseph and Moses remind us that divine purpose often emerges from seasons of setback and isolation, proving that closed doors are part of God's preparation for greater calling. Faith means believing that behind every closed door lies a new beginning. And when God finally opens the right one, it reveals that every moment of waiting, pain, and confusion was never wasted. When a door closes in life, it often feels like the ground beneath us shifts. We stand before it, wondering what went wrong, questioning every decision that led us there. But what we fail to see in that moment is that the hand which closed that door was the same hand that once opened it. God is never late, never early, and never mistaken. He closes doors not to punish us, but to prepare us. He knows the path ahead, even when our vision is clouded by disappointment. What seems like rejection is often His way of clearing the road for something better. Sometimes we pray for opportunities that would only bring us harm or heartache, and in His mercy, God says no. That closed door becomes a form of protection, a sacred pause in which He redirects us toward His greater plan. We might think we've lost something valuable, a relationship, a career, a dream. But God's plan operates on a level we cannot yet comprehend. He allows endings so that we can experience new beginnings. Just as a seed must first die before it can sprout into new life, there are dreams that must first fall apart so that new ones can rise stronger, deeper, and truer to His purpose. When we learn to see closed doors not as barriers, but as divine guidance, we stop fighting against God's will and start flowing with it. In every closed door, there is an unseen opportunity for growth. It teaches us patience, humility, and faith in ways success never could. We learn to depend on God's timing instead of our own. We discover that our disappointments can become divine appointments if we keep our hearts open. God doesn't close one door without preparing another to open, but He waits until we are ready to walk through it with wisdom, gratitude, and trust. The end of one chapter is never the end of the book. It is simply the turning of a page in the story He is writing for our lives, a story far more beautiful than anything we could have written ourselves. ChatGPT said, "There are moments when God closes a door and we are left staring at it, unable to understand why. We see only what's in front of us, but God sees what's beyond it. His ways are higher than ours. His sight stretches beyond the moment, and His love shields us from what could destroy us if we rushed ahead." Sometimes the very thing we prayed for with tears and faith isn't denied because we were unworthy. It's withheld because it wasn't safe. God knows the pain that waits behind certain opportunities, the betrayal hidden in certain friendships, and the downfall hidden in certain dreams. When He closes a door, it's often because He's saving you from something you cannot yet see. We often mistake protection for rejection. We cry out, believing we've been forgotten, but in truth, we're being guarded. The same God who parts the seas also builds walls when needed. Those walls are not to imprison us, but to keep us from walking into storms we aren't meant to face. There are jobs that would have drained your spirit, relationships that would have stolen your peace, paths that would have led you far from His purpose. And so, in His mercy, He closes the door firmly, lovingly, and completely. If only we could see what He sees, we would thank Him for every no, every delay, every interruption that kept us safe. The heartache you feel today may be the reason you stand in victory tomorrow. Sometimes God's greatest gifts come wrapped in disappointment. It's through the pain of the closed door that He prepares the way for one that will truly bless you. So when that door slams shut, take comfort in knowing that it's not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your protection. The God who closes doors is the same God who leads you to better ones, each one designed with your safety, your purpose, and your eternal good in mind. Disappointment has a way of shaking the strongest hearts. When plans fail and doors close, it feels as though God has turned away, leaving us to wander in confusion. But those moments of delay and silence are not signs of abandonment. They are divine classrooms where faith is tested, stretched, and strengthened. God uses the pauses of life to shape our character, to refine our trust, and to strip away our dependence on what is temporary. It is easy to believe when everything is going right, but true faith is forged when nothing seems to make sense, when the answer is slow in coming, when prayers seem unanswered, when the waiting feels endless. That is when God is doing his deepest work. Every delay is an opportunity to learn trust at a new level. God does not withhold his promises. He prepares us to receive them. The waiting period molds us into people who can handle the blessings without being destroyed by them. A door closed today might open tomorrow, but by then you will be different, wiser, humbler, stronger, and more grounded in faith. That transformation is what God is after. He values your growth more than your comfort, your faith more than your speed. In the stillness of waiting, you learn to recognize his voice. You learn that his timing is not a punishment, but a strategy. What feels like delay is often his protection from premature success or shallow victory. It's in those silent seasons that we discover what it really means to trust. Not because we see the outcome, but because we know the one who holds it. Faith is not proven by how loud we shout when doors open, but by how steady we stand when they remain closed. The beauty of God's plan is that even the waiting has purpose. Every disappointment becomes a seed of preparation, every delay a bridge to destiny, and every moment of silence a reminder that God is still working, even when we cannot see it. Disappointment has a way of shaking the strongest hearts. When plans fail and doors close, it feels as though God has turned away, leaving us to wander in confusion. But those moments of delay and silence are not signs of abandonment. They are divine classrooms where faith is tested, stretched, and strengthened. God uses the pauses of life to shape our character, to refine our trust, and to strip away our dependence on what is temporary. It is easy to believe when everything is going right, but true faith is forged when nothing seems to make sense. When the answer is slow in coming, when prayers seem unanswered, when the waiting feels endless, that is when God is doing his deepest work. Every delay is an opportunity to learn trust at a new level. God does not withhold his promises. He prepares us to receive them. The waiting period molds us into people who can handle the blessings without being destroyed by them. A door closed today might open tomorrow, but by then you will be different, wiser, humbler, stronger, and more grounded in faith. That transformation is what God is after. He values your growth more than your comfort, your faith more than your speed. In the stillness of waiting, you learn to recognize his voice. You learn that his timing is not a punishment, but a strategy. What feels like delay is often his protection from premature success or shallow victory. It's in those silent seasons that we discover what it really means to trust. Not because we see the outcome, but because we know the one who holds it. Faith is not proven by how loud we shout when doors open, but by how steady we stand when they remain closed. The beauty of God's plan is that even the waiting has purpose. Every disappointment becomes a seed of preparation, every delay a bridge to destiny, and every moment of silence a reminder that God is still working, even when we cannot see it. There comes a time when God asks us to let go, not because he wants to take something from us, but because he wants to give us something better. When a door closes, the natural instinct is to push harder, to knock louder, to force our way back into what feels familiar. But God's closed doors are invitations to surrender. They are moments where He whispers, "Will you trust me even when you don't understand?" True surrender is not about giving up. It is about handing over control to the one who knows the end from the beginning. It is about releasing our grip on what we thought we needed and opening our hands to receive what He has planned. When we stop striving to open doors God has shut, peace begins to settle in our hearts. The struggle fades and clarity begins to rise. It is in surrender that we hear His direction most clearly. Our pride quiets, our fear loosens its hold, and our spirit becomes sensitive to His voice. God never forces His will on us. He invites us into it through true trust and obedience. The moment we choose to release our plans, He begins to unfold His. What once looked like a dead end suddenly becomes a doorway to something divine. Letting go doesn't mean losing hope. It means shifting our hope from outcomes to God Himself. It means believing that His ways are not only higher, but also kinder, wiser, and more beautiful than ours. Every surrendered moment becomes a seed for future blessings. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to walk away from what you thought was right. But obedience always leads to revelation. In the quiet after the struggle, we realize that God was never trying to break our hearts. He was trying to align them. And when we finally stop fighting the closed door, we find that He had been guiding us to the right one all along. A door that doesn't need to be forced open because it was designed for us from the very beginning. Life is filled with stories of people who faced doors that slammed shut, only to discover later that God was working behind the scenes. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into a prison cell. Every step of his journey seemed to move him further from his dream, but in truth, it was leading him directly toward it. The pain, the rejection, the waiting, all of it was shaping him into the man God needed him to be. What looked like a series of closed doors was actually a divine sequence of preparation. Without the prison, there would have been no palace. Without the betrayal, there would have been no breakthrough. God used every setback as a stepping stone to elevate Joseph to his purpose. The same pattern appeared in the life of Moses. After fleeing Egypt in fear, he spent 40 years in the wilderness, far from the power and privilege he once knew. The door to his old life had closed completely. Yet in that solitude, God was preparing him for something far greater than royal comfort. He was calling him to lead a nation to freedom. The wilderness that felt like exile was, in fact, the classroom where Moses learned humility, obedience, and courage. When the time came, the same man who once ran from responsibility stood before Pharaoh as the voice of God's deliverance. These stories remind us that closed doors are not signs of failure, but of formation. God never wastes pain. Every disappointment, every delay, every detour holds purpose. What we call waiting, He calls training. What we call loss, He calls preparation. When you face moments where nothing makes sense, remember that the same God who wrote Joseph's and Moses' stories is writing yours. The waiting season is not a punishment. It's the stage where strength, faith, and character are built. You may not understand the reason for your closed doors today, but one day you will see that every no was necessary to lead you to the destiny God designed uniquely for you. Faith is not tested in moments of clarity, but in moments of confusion, when every door seems to close and the path ahead is hidden in shadow. It's in those times that trust becomes more than a word, it becomes a lifeline. When we stand before a closed door, faith whispers that God has not forgotten us. It reminds us that every ending is a beginning in disguise, that His silence is not absence, and that His timing is always wrapped in wisdom. The same God who shuts one door has already prepared another, one that leads not just to what we want, but to what we truly need. Believing in this truth requires courage, because it means walking by faith, not by sight. It means trusting that the hand that closed one door is the same hand holding the key to the next. Often, God will not show us what's ahead until we've learned to let go of what's behind. Faith isn't about understanding the plan. It's about trusting the planner. The hallway between the closed door and the open one can feel long and lonely, but it's in that space that faith grows roots deep enough to weather any storm. Every disappointment, every unanswered prayer, every delay is shaping you into someone who can carry the blessings that are coming. The pain you feel today will one day become the proof of your endurance. When the new door finally opens, you'll see that every tear watered the soil of your destiny, and every unanswered question was part of God's preparation. What once felt like loss will reveal itself as protection. What once seemed like confusion will unfold as divine design. Faith is believing that God is still good, even when life doesn't go as planned. It's standing in the hallway with peace in your heart, knowing that the closed door was never meant to define you, but to direct you. And when the right door opens in His time, it will open so smoothly, so perfectly, that you'll understand why all the others had to close. There comes a moment when we must stop staring at the door that has closed and start walking toward the one that is about to open. The waiting, the confusion, the disappointment, it all begins to make sense when faith takes the lead. God never leaves His children wandering without purpose. Every closed door, every delay, every detour is a thread in the larger tapestry of His design. You may not see the pattern now, but He is weaving beauty out of what feels like brokenness. The pain that once made you question Him will soon become the proof that He was always guiding you. There are no wasted tears, no useless moments, no accidental endings in the life of someone who trusts God. He uses it all, every setback, every no, every closed opportunity, to bring you into alignment with the destiny He designed before you even took your first breath. We often ask God for clarity, but He gives us trust instead. We ask for direction, and He gives us faith. Because if we knew every answer, we would no longer need to depend on Him. The power of a closed door is that it forces us to look up instead of ahead. It draws us closer to the one who knows what we cannot see. When one path ends, it's not because God has forgotten you. It's because He's leading you somewhere higher. The hallways of waiting are sacred. They are where character is built, where pride is stripped away, and where the heart learns to listen. Sometimes God's greatest work happens in the quiet moments between what was and what's coming next. You may feel like you've been left in the dark, but even there, His presence surrounds you. He is not only the God of open doors, but also the God who stands beside you in the hallway. He does not rush your journey, because He knows that some doors are not just entrances, they are transformations. When He finally opens the right one, you'll realize that it wasn't just a new opportunity He was preparing, it was a new you. The pain, the patience, the surrender, all of it will have shaped you into someone who can walk boldly through that next door with faith instead of fear. Look back for a moment. Think about the times you thought it was over, when your strength was gone, when hope felt like a distant memory. yet somehow you made it. You are still standing. That's proof that God's grace has carried you every step of the way. The doors that closed behind you were never meant to trap you. They were meant to release you into something better. Every chapter that ended made room for a new one to begin. You are not behind. You are exactly where God needs you to be in this season. The door that is coming will not require you to force it open. It will swing wide in its time, revealing why every other one had to close. You will walk through it with peace, not striving, with joy, not fear, with faith, not doubt. And when you do, you'll look back at the road you traveled. The prayers, the tears, the nights you questioned everything. And you'll realize it all led you here. The closed doors were never a sign of rejection, but of divine protection. The delays were never denials, but preparation. The silence was not abandonment, but love waiting for the right moment to speak. Because when God closes one door, He is already reaching for the handle of the next. And that next door will lead you exactly where you were always meant to be.